Hello, I'm Tony Guida. This is My New York. If you were asked for creative ideas to improve the quality of life in our city, might one of them look like this? A bridge for pedestrians and bike riders only, from Brooklyn to Manhattan, with a stop at Governor's Island. Just one of the brilliant concepts from the fertile mind of Sam Schwartz, a two-sewer stickball star from Bensonhurst who became a transportation engineer improving cities around the world. Many of Sam's ideas are in his new book, Street Smart, The Rise of Cities and the Fall of Cars. We'll talk with Gridlock Sam next. I'm delighted to welcome to the program Sam Schwartz. I did not think a book about transportation could be, at least in some ways, delightful, but this is delightful. Personal memoir, as well as transportation prescriptive.
Well, I'm glad you liked it, Tony.
It's terrific. In high school, in Bensonhurst, your best subject was physics. Did you really think you were going to be a physicist?
I had a brother who's 10 years my senior, and he has a PhD in physics.
Really?
And I was good in physics. I didn't know any other career. My father owned what you'd call a bodega nowadays, and all the kids worked in my father's store.
Right.
We knew no professionals, so it wasn't, there were no examples. So my brother was my example, and he was my big brother. So I thought, sure, I'll be a physicist, and I can also put off life for a long time because it takes forever to get a PhD in physics.
Right.
So that was my plan.
But when he asked you, and you sought advice from him, when he asked you, what do you like? What are you interested in? You said girls, party, and music.
Yes. So I was a senior in college, and I did okay in college. I didn't do great, but nonetheless, it's so rare to find an American-born who wants to go into physics, into the sciences, the hard sciences.
Right.
So I was being recruited by a lot of the B schools, and my brother was at MIT at the time, and I went to visit him to get advice, what school should I go to? And he said, you're 20 years old, the year's 1968, you're 20 years old, and you haven't been discovered yet. At best, you're going to be a mediocre physicist. And what do you like? And I was a dumb 20-year-old. And I said, I don't know. I like girls. I like partying. And then finally, he says, get serious. Come on, what do you like? And I was in the suburbs in Lexington in Massachusetts.
Right.
My brother lived in the suburbs, my other brother, my sister.
Yeah, and you're talking about trying to pick a graduate school.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. And so I said, I like cities. And my brother, thinking in equations, put together, well, you're pretty good in math and science, not good enough to be a physicist, but you're pretty good in math and science. Math plus science plus cities, and there goes the calculation. And he comes out with transportation, traffic. And it was like a line out of The Graduate, the
right.
plastic
Plastics.
line.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
with the guy around the pool whispers to Dustin Hoffman.
Yeah, so it was kind of like that, and then I applied to a couple of graduate schools, and I got into the University of Pennsylvania and went there and found that that's what I really like to do. I liked transportation, I liked cities, and this was a great opportunity.
Well, your brother deserves some sort of award because
sure.
He saw something in you that you have produced way over the bar that he probably imagined and made a very successful career. Let's go back to Bensonhurst. You're growing up in Bensonhurst. You're 10 years old. 83rd Street is your block. You refer to 83rd Street as your playground, your ball field, your hangout. And many New Yorkers of a certain age remember their streets that way. But there was change blowing in the wind that you probably at 10 weren't aware of yet about what was going to be happening to those streets, right?
Yeah. Well, what I did notice is that a lot of my friends were moving away, and that got to be a problem. But the street itself,
moving to the suburbs.
They were moving to the suburbs or to Los Angeles, and then my Dodgers moved to Los Angeles when I was about 10 or 11, and so I hated the suburbs. I hated L.A., even though I followed Sandy Koufax for a number of years after that because he came from Bensonhurst.
Right, yeah. This change that was blown in the wind later as a traffic and transportation professional, and in this book, you trace it back to, I guess we could trace it back to the early 1900s and something called the American Wheelman Association. The first, if I understand your book correctly, the first lobbying group that's trying to improve the pretty primitive roads in this country at that time.
That's right, and it's kind of ironic that it's a bicycling organization that saw the automobile as their ally in figuring both of us want nice hard roads, and automobiles were only owned by the rich or in rural areas, so there weren't a lot of them around, so they weren't a menace to the bike riders. So they formed this alliance. But then once Henry Ford came up with the Model T and we started seeing the mass-produced cars, and the average worker able to own a car, we watched two of the bloodiest decades we've ever seen. And that's when the car first makes its appearance in large numbers between 1908 and 1930 on city streets throughout the country. More than 20,000 people are killed in those years by so few cars. It's extraordinary.
I think we should emphasize what you just said. Cars start to appear on city streets. The streets up to then had been for pedestrians, for bikers, and for tradesmen.
Right. And everything was moving relatively slowly. People in a horse weren't speeding by, it was trotting by, and you can get out of the way, and occasionally there'd be an accident, but it wasn't that serious. But then we enter two bloody decades, and at the end of it, the pedestrians are relegated to the sides, and the cars become dominant. The bikes are kicked out, even though they were the leaders of the movement for hard roads.
And the dominance that the automakers were seeking and got, you refer to it as something called motordom, essentially through a law that got passed, the Municipal Traffic Ordinance of 1927. Tell us, without every detail, what was that and what was the effect of that?
Well, up until then, pedestrians really had the right to walk. Bike riders had the right to bike. The streets were to be shared by just about everyone. And then finally, it became law that the pedestrian had to remain on the sidewalk, that the pedestrian had to cross at intersections. And suddenly we became people that moved at right angles. Until then, we just diagonally went across streets to our next destination. So it really relegated people. It defined some traffic rules and regulations, which were needed at the time. But by and large, what it did was create this situation where the land between those sidewalks is owned by the car, and that wasn't enough for the car. Sidewalks became narrower and narrower and narrower in just about every city.
It might be interesting to point out that the committee or the panel that came up with this recommendation to the president was overloaded with automobile interests.
Yeah. So it was really the equivalent of the automobile clubs were well represented on it. Trucking industry well represented on it. I think there was only one representative who represented pedestrians.
And they were after, as you point out in the book, their target wasn't so much bikes or other things, but the streetcar. They wanted to get rid of the streetcars, and they did.
Yeah. The streetcar was the dominant form of urban transportation from 1880, 1890 till about 1930. And soon there was this entire movement to modernize. So there was the Le Corbusier movement of 1920 or so that said modernization was the automobile. And that was viewed as clean technology because prior to that you had the horse droppings.
Right.
And so that there was a belief by even many progressives, and Bob Moses was considered a progressive when he first started out, that the modern city was one that did not have streetcars. But they didn't go just as far as making the case, the political case. They went as far as buying up streetcar lines in city after city. In about 100 cities, streetcar lines were bought up by General Motors and Phillips Petroleum.
With
and
front corporations, by the way.
Front corporations.
They did this
right.
under the
Right.
radar. And you point out in the book an interesting and lovely little analogy to the plot or a major part of the plot of a terrific animated film called Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when they're trying to, the evil people in that are trying to get the streetcar in Toontown, take it over, and get rid of it.
Yeah, and there are analogies to what happened, and ultimately all these motor companies were convicted in the late 1940s. I think they were fined about $5,000 and told not to do it again. But in Roger Rabbit, perhaps my favorite scene is it takes place in Los Angeles, and it's the 1930s, and the detective is offered a ride in a car. And he says, a car in L.A.? Who needs a car in L.A.? You get a streetcar, it takes you everywhere.
Right. Exactly.
And
just to put the icing on all of this background that we're going through, we move, cars now have dominance, cars own the roads, pedestrians gone, streetcars gone, and it continues into post-war. GI Bill has an effect, and of course Eisenhower and the interstate highway system, which basically paved paradise.
Right, so after World War II, a lot of veterans returned. The idea was that everybody would have your own home. The GI Bill does not encourage people to have homes and own homes in cities. Instead, it's delegated for new construction. Mm-hmm. And where's the new construction? It's going to be in the suburbs. How are you going to get to the suburbs? There's road building that goes on like crazy, and at first it's wonderful. And I remember growing up with the commercials, see the USA in your Chevrolet. Right. America's asking you to call, and people were just traveling and going out to the suburbs. Eisenhower comes along after having seen the roads in Germany and also having taken a cross-country trip in 1919 that took over 2 months to complete. He says, we need something like what they have in Germany so we can move troops back and forth between cities if we ever get attacked. And so he comes up with this interstate defense highway network, but it really was meant to link cities. But the money was so seductive. It was 90% right. Federal.
You're a politician, you're the mayor of whatever town, and you can get a road for 10 cents on the dollar. You're going to be a hero.
Yeah, a lot of jobs. A lot of people get put to work. Nobody's thinking about the long-term impacts of that. But nonetheless, in a city like New York, the state picked up 6 cents of that $1. So New York City only had to put up 4 cents. So for $4 million, they could get $100 million worth of road. It was extraordinary. And so road after road, barrels through neighborhoods, and barrels through cities. And every city in the United States in its business district, the only city that doesn't have an interstate is New York City. But every city has an interstate going right through it. That's not what Eisenhower intended. It really wasn't meant for urban transportation. Mm-hmm. It was meant to go from city to city. But it just got to be such a big lobby. The highway lobby was gigantic. And jobs, it was everything, and it was the American dream, move out to the suburbs. But not the American dream for all, because those were left behind in the cities, including me. But those left behind in the cities saw the cities deteriorate. Began a pretty bad spiral.
Right. Suburbs were heaven. Suburbs were the American dream. Mm-hmm. Cities were places of crime and dirt and places to be avoided. Yeah. I mean, what we've just charted is about 50, 60 years of American history, and that's the result, right? That's basically what it boils down to.
Yeah, and we watched cities deteriorate, and we watched cities become the home of largely minorities. So the minorities are seeing none of the advantages that the city had once offered, because now the cities can't even raise enough revenue to keep basic functions going. The transit systems in city after city, if they weren't totally destroyed, it was a downward spiral. Even here in New York City, it became a terrible spiral where we saw ridership disappear, reduction in service, more riders disappear, fares go up, more riders disappear. Right. And we saw a subway system in the 70s, and that was really the pits. Yeah. You did not want to ride in the subway in those days.
Well, you were, at this point, a young professional in this career, transportation professional, and you had very different ideas about all this. And, I mean, I guess they could be summed up in something you say in the book. If the only function of a road is to get from point A to point B as quickly as possible, it's a poor definition of transportation. And that's the definition everybody was going by, but you're seeing something else. And you come to the traffic department, and I think you refer to yourself as a sometimes saboteur of what the traffic department was doing, but for what you thought was a greater good.
Yeah, you know, I had the experience of being someone who was left behind. I was working with a team of traffic engineers that all, to a man, and there weren't women, to a man lived in the suburbs. And I was also trained at the University of Pennsylvania by Vukan Vucic, who had the benefit of being someone from Europe. He was Yugoslavian. He traveled around cities throughout Europe, Asia. He gave us that kind of world perspective, and I knew it didn't have to be this way. And so I lived in Prospect Lefferts Garden, but the rough part of it in 1970, 71 when I started with the traffic department. And I started redesigning some of the roads around me. And I made roads disappear. There was a road in Prospect Park. And as a junior engineer, you had the final drawings and the senior engineers would all stamp it, but they would never look at what you did. So I would make roads disappear and sidewalks get widened. And it began a whole program that ultimately was then endorsed later on by during the Koch administration. I got to do more of it, and then Bloomberg certainly advanced that.
And you saw a couple of disasters, I guess, that further contributed to the fact that what we'd been doing wasn't the way to do it. And the West Side Highway collapse of 73, I guess, was a great example because this highway collapses around 58, 59, wherever it was. The elevated part comes down. 80,000 cars a day are using this road, and there's panic, like, oh my God, 80,000 cars, there's no road. The surrounding streets are going to be swamped. Didn't happen.
Right.
Didn't happen.
Yeah, my job was to trace where the traffic went. And I was able to trace some of it to other roads. The FDR Drive picked up some of the West Side roads picked up. But there was 25 or 30% that I couldn't account for. Some of it may have gone into the subways. But what it showed is that roads induce traffic, and removing roads, and we now have the example of the West Side Highway, the Embarcadero in San Francisco, has the other effect. It also reduces traffic. So this concept, and there's been many studies that have shown that in cities of today, when you add a road, a parallel road, you don't solve the traffic problem. All you do is fill up that road and the roads you were trying to alleviate.
If you build it, they will come. Build the lanes, they'll fill up.
Yeah, and it's a paradox. But what happens is more people drive, more people begin to move further out, so they drive more miles. Fewer people use the transit system, which sends even more drivers into the roads. So it's hard for a lot of people to imagine that building a new road doesn't make you move any faster.
All of this stuff that you are seeing and the experience you're accumulating in the city traffic department, and then even after you're out of government and into your own business, you foresaw a lot of this. But and the book is, centers on a group of people that you didn't foresee, at least, or you didn't foresee what they would be doing. Millennials, you guys, all the professionals, missed the trend. Tell us the importance of that in terms of everything we've been talking about.
Yeah, for 100 years, I've been monitoring traffic for almost 50 years, but for 100 years, we watched traffic go up. If you look at vehicle miles traveled, VMT is our measure of how much driving there is. It goes straight up from the Henry Ford days to the Depression, takes a little bit of a dip, but then as soon as the Depression's over, it goes up, World War II, and then it goes up post-World War II, a couple of little blips in the 70s during fuel crises, but every generation drives more than the previous generation.
For 100 years.
For 100 years. And then something happens in 2003 that nobody really notices until about 2010. And it's not because anyone planned it. I didn't foresee it. No one I know foresaw it. We always called the driver the most stubborn lot out there, and we had to yank them out of their cars. But it was happening without us. And younger people started to drive less. What we saw starting around 2003, 10 consecutive years of VMT going down. Now, that's well before the recession of 2008, 2009. It accelerates through the recession, continues after the recession is over. Every single recession, about a dozen recessions in the previous 100 years, there's always been a return of VMT. Suddenly, VMT stays down, and it stays down. And is it
still, I mean, the statistics, the most recent ones, are a few years old, but is it maintaining?
We are seeing a bit of an increase, especially with plunging gas prices, oil prices. I think a barrel is now $36. We're going to see prices. We're already seeing prices in New Jersey in the $1-something range. So we have seen a pickup in driving, and we don't know the cause yet. But when you look at that cohort, the millennials, they're still 5 to 6% below where they were just 15 years ago, that same 20 to 34-year-old group.
Profound effects from this. And there's a book, about it. Synthesize some of the effects in terms of the rise of cities and the fall of cars, which is the subtitle of your book.
Well, here in New York, we see so many of the impacts. So if you take a look at a neighborhood like Williamsburg, Williamsburg was a pretty rough, gritty neighborhood. My family moved from the Lower East Side to Williamsburg. My parents, after they came from Poland, and it was where poor people lived. And it was a neighborhood, even as recently as the late 1980s, that was still a pretty rough place. You had the Hasidic Jews there, and then you had some pretty rough communities, low income. Now Williamsburg has prices, it has hotels in it. Who would ever think it would have hotels in it?
And rents through the roof.
The rents through the roof. If you want to buy a condo, a co-op, it's over $1,000 a square foot. Those are Manhattan rates.
Right. And these are the millennials.
Yeah, and it spills over.
Maybe we should tell our audience, millennials are young people who were born after 1982.
Right.
People born after 1982, millennials. Okay, go on.
Yeah, so what we're seeing is it spills over from Williamsburg and goes into Bushwick, it goes into Bed-Stuy, and people that wouldn't have lived in those communities, the young, the yuppies, the young professionals, they avoided those communities through the 50s, 60s, and we watch those communities deteriorate through the 90s. And something happens, right around the millennium, in which those communities start getting better. When I lived in Brooklyn, and I raised my family in Flatbush, we watched the wave of neighborhoods deteriorate. Schools deteriorate. It seemed like things were always getting worse, and I just had no idea where it would end up. And all of a sudden, in the past 15 years, things seem to be getting better. And it's wonderful to see. I'm so happy for Brooklyn.
And the impact in transportation is?
Well, the impact in transportation is more people are taking public transportation, fewer people are driving. Car ownership is way down. The mayor is absolutely right in abandoning the requirement that we have a parking space for every unit, or even for half the units that are built, especially in affordable housing. He's right on target. We don't need that, and we do need more housing. So it allows us to build more housing if we don't have to build parking associated with that housing. It means trips are shorter. It means the local bodega is doing better business and local stores are thriving and coffee shops and restaurants.
But it also obviously implies a need for efficient and good transportation and different forms of transportation for those, communities that are springing up and blossoming where they were in decay, as you point out. And so we have bike lanes, for instance.
That's right.
And a lot more walking. And what we need, I would think, but, is even more bus routes and I don't know, the subway, that's a whole other story because adding on to lines or building new lines, as we see on 2nd Avenue, is a pretty big deal. But variations on getting from here to there and not roads.
Yes, and so bike lanes, bikes have blossomed, especially since the Bloomberg administration. And we're seeing bike share, which is a phenomenon that's now in about 250 cities. 10 years ago, maybe there was 1 or 2 bike share systems. I think Paris might have been the first big city to do it. And now there are 250. Just about every city, even in Moscow, I was in Moscow 2 years ago, and there was a bike share system. And that's because young people, this is transcending borders. We're seeing the same thing happen in Western Europe. We're not seeing it happen to such an extent in developing nations. It seems like they want to repeat the mistakes we make. But yes, more bike lanes, more select bus service, which is a form of bus rapid transit for New York City. We want to expand some subways, and I do hope that there is more support for expanding the subway system. We've got to build those rail tunnels. Streetcars. I want to see a return of Toonville and a return of those streetcars. And I think Brooklyn and Queens waterfront is ideal. I think 42nd Street, river to river, makes a lot of sense. And there are probably other locations.
Well, you've come up with some grand plans that you would build it, or you would put into effect if you were the czar and had all the money and all the power. This issue that we've been talking about comes to a point at the end of your book, and it raises a real thorny issue. This whole picture that we've been talking about raises a real thorny issue of equality, of fairness, and that's where your book ends, but we must end part 1 of our discussion here. And I'm delighted you'll be with us again next week, and we will talk about that very difficult issue of fairness, of equity involved in this whole new change in the way transportation is being used and the people using it. So glad you're coming back next week, Sam.
Thank you, Tony.
And I hope you'll be here with us as well.